Good evening, I'm Marty Olson and welcome to City Focus. Tonight we're going to have a program that's focused in on education in New London, and we will have ultimately two candidates that are running for the New London Board of Education. On set right now is Myrna Martinez, who's a member of the Green Party, and she's been cross-endorsed by the New London Republican Party. I'm expecting Jason Catala in as well, and Jason is currently being interviewed by the day, so when he gets through there, he'll be scooting over here and joining our conversation. Myrna, I want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you, Marty.
And actually, I think I had you on a couple of years ago when you ran as well. So this is your second time on the campaign trail seeking elected office in New London.
That's right, yeah.
Myrna is a youth program director for Fresh New London. She's married and has two children. You live on Granite Street, correct?
Prospect Street.
Prospect Street,
yeah.
Excuse me. I'm thinking
Coastal neighborhood.
Right in the neighborhood. She's also involved with the New London Parent Advocates Program and
a co-founder
of it. And I see you out and about at a variety of community events. So your presence and activism in the community, I think, speaks for itself. I mean, you're certainly concerned and take part in a lot of the community goings on. So
that's right. Yeah, I'm very involved in town. I mean, I've got my little list of those that I'm regularly involved in, but my face is around a lot in town. I find New London to be, I mean, I guess that's why I'm here. I find it to be a really accessible place to live, and you can know people, but you also get a little bit of space. There's plenty to do, and I've been enjoying it. And I think part of enjoying it is giving back to it and being a part of the constant development of the place.
And how long have you been in New London?
About 12 years.
And what brought you to New London?
What brought me to New London?
And from where?
New York City. From New York City.
So you wanted to come into the real big city.
I know. I find it funny when we call this the city, and it's really confusing because the city is New York City to me. But I'd been looking for a house, actually a town, for a while. It could have been a couple of years, and but I hadn't considered Connecticut at all. We were looking in New Jersey and New York, looking for a neat town. Before a house, we were just looking for a neat place to land in. And my husband's from Chester, Connecticut, and I saw, on I guess an internet search, a little stone house for $135,000 in this place that I didn't know anything about called New London. And we did a drive-by just to look at it, and it happened to be Art Stroll. And when we saw the galleries open, we said, this is a place for us, and we called up a realtor, and the next house is the house we're in.
That's a pretty neat story.
Yeah, it sold itself. So Art Stroll, I mean, that's an important venue.
Well, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Now, you're also an educator. I mean, you're a teacher.
I am.
And you've taught in the system as well?
I am. So I've got a master's in bilingual education. I've taught in Boston and New York, and here at Benny Dover in New London, at Edgerton in New London. Was a part of the conception stage of the Dual Language Arts Academy, and then also was involved there for 3 years. So yeah.
Well, a question I think that you have to ask all candidates for whatever office they're running is why? Why are you running for the New London Board of Education?
I am heavily involved and driven. I don't want to say passionate just because it's an overused word, but I do feel that way. If I could come up quickly with a different word to use. But our educational system means a lot to me. I think while teaching, I've, when I realized certain things that, there are things that worked and things that don't work, and I think thought back to where does this stem from? Where does this policy stem from? And so thinking of a Board of Education, I think it's been in the back of my mind for a while. And then about a year and a half ago when we started New London Parent Advocates. I think we got a good amount of momentum with that group. And
would you like to discuss what that group's all about?
yeah, so New London Parent Advocates is a group, as the name says, well, parents, the intention is to get parents involved. We are a couple of other people also who aren't just parents, a couple of community members, but in whatever it is that we need to do in making a better school system. And what that's really panned out to be is involvement with what is going on, whatever changes are going on. We kind of discuss them and look at what needs to take positions and look at what needs to be done, how we can help influence, how we can educate ourselves, more background and issues that are things that are happening. And like I said, it's gotten good momentum, and we've have a few accomplishments that we've gotten immediate. The first thing, one of the first simple things to do, but I think meaningful, is to get childcare at the Board of Education. Just advocated for that, and the board did. We got childcare at Board of Education meetings. Let's see, so we've moved on with that, and I think with that group, because I saw the value in involving family members, I did have to reconsider this time. Do I run again, or are my efforts best placed in continuing with that group? And so I did there was a lot of back and forth with that personally, and I settled on that I sat through too many meetings of sitting on the edge of my seat and not having an opportunity to give some input on the other side. So I'm going to try this again.
Well, good. And it's certainly, I found over the course of time that it's not that it's easier to fight the battles, but it's fighting on the inside when you have that vote.
Sure.
It means something.
Sure,
you can jump up and down on the outside, but ultimately those who have the vote, they are calling the shots, so to speak.
Sure. I also did learn that there is influence on the outside as well. So it's all necessary. It's all, important contributions.
And it is. Folks, I want to remind you that at City Focus that we are live and the numbers are on the screen. So if you'd like to contribute to the program, please give us a call. Locally, we can be reached at 860-440-3154. Or if you're out of the local calling area and you'd like to call, please do at 800-253-2285. Again, I'm Marty Olson, your host at City Focus, and currently I have Myrna Martinez with me, who's a candidate for New London Board of Education, and she's a dynamic and engaging woman who I think would be a real asset to our Board of Education. So we're discussing why she's running, and she's kind of given me an overview of her interest and qualifications and things of that nature. Now, in the last 2 years, the local district has had some rather radical changes to it. Mm-hmm. One is the introduction of the state of Connecticut.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Through Dr. Stephen Adamowski as, I guess he's called a special master. Which
yes.
I don't know if I like those connotations or not, but that's what it is. What's your take on the state's role right now? Is it good, bad, and different? What's working, what's not, in your mind?
Okay. Well, I'd say what's perhaps been a little helpful is that the board the meetings seem to be a little bit more orderly. I think that the public presence of the board has improved. I definitely have concerns with state intervention. I hear about the possibility of takeover. I hear about, or I'm concerned about the state or our intervention having an agenda, having ideas in place before our board has an opportunity to vote, to work out certain issues. and that's really concerning. I do believe in the community of New London knowing New London best, and for our public to be able to, our New London community to be able to have a hand in how it is that we move forward. As educated, as experienced as the intervener may be, he's not from the community, and so I do believe that we need to be careful and not take away the power of the local community.
Do you feel in any way, shape, or form that the mere presence of the state as it's currently constituted is taking away that authority? Or is the board operating on all 8 cylinders or at 100%?
Hopefully not just mere presence. I mean, we'd hope that there's, I hope it's not something so simple, because hopefully we've got an elected board that's strong enough to, vote in the direction that they believe is best, So I don't know if mere presence, but perhaps, I don't know if you're alluding to pressures, and so therefore, and I don't know exactly what, but pressures from the state or from Stephen Adamowski. Is it?
Well, I think that there's inherent pressure by having the presence, not necessarily of him personally, but the position that he currently holds. That's just one man's opinion. I think that.
Can you speak to that a little more?
Can I speak to it?
Yeah.
He has, by statute, some extraordinary authority that I think puts pressure on the board, where their authority as elected officials, to a degree, has been marginalized, and he's in for at least another year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so. I think in September he's given another year.
He's not going away. So
yeah, I mean, I know that there are plenty of people who believe that it's not a productive time to be going into the Board of Ed. Like, why would you do this? Why would you want to be a part of the board at a time where they don't have the ability to make decisions? Either A, I hope that that's not really true, or B, that we need people there anyway to make sure that whatever influences are made public, and that we're being honest and transparent about what is going on.
Well, I give you credit for stepping up. I mean, it's a challenging environment, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome my second guest.
Don't ask him a question, his mic's not on.
Well, in that case, we'll wait for the mic to be turned on so Jason can get fully engaged here and catch his breath. Yes. Welcome, Jason Catala. And I think Mary Jane will let us know when your mic is up and you're ready to rock and roll.
Sounds good.
But just to bring you up to speed, we're discussing right at the moment the role of the state intervention and Dr. Stephen Adamowski, Special Master.
Okay.
Is he up and running?
Yeah.
Okay. Jason Catala, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I was at the day.
Well, I'm sure that your presence down there and your terrific interview you'll be getting endorsed by the day, I'm sure,
Yes.
To get re-elected.
Yes.
This is what, your sixth?
This would be my 6th term if re-elected. Yes. Yeah.
And you did a term on the city council as well.
1 term on the city council. Yes.
So,
been around.
You've been around and
Been
certainly
around.
engaged in the community, and I want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We were talking about, you were asking me about the pressures, if there are, from the state intervention. So
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that, Jason? Having the state, do you feel that they're calling the shots, or do you get, what role how's that working for the board? I mean, you're in it right now. Myrna wants to get into
Yeah.
it, so.
Well, I can tell you when I first heard of the state and that whole process about a couple board members and the superintendent going up and requesting, because you know that it was a process where they went and asked for state intervention. I was against the idea. In the beginning of my last term, I wasn't in favor of state intervention. I thought that we could move forward because ultimately we should be making decisions on our own. But now that we have had state intervention, I have seen where there are times where Dr. Adamowski has led us into certain directions with the magnet school plan. That has been a good idea and a successful way in which we are moving. The bottom line is the funding. I've said it before that the magnet school is going to bring, the plan is going to bring extra funding to our district. And we've been told that we couldn't survive without the funding. So the Board of Ed was told, and you were around when we were told that, you know, long term, without some type of alternate plan, the New London Public Schools needed some type of plan so that we could continue providing schools in the city of New London. And the funding that comes along with magnet schools was the reasonings. And we were told this by Dr. Adamowski, and he has walked us through this SOP and all these different plans that we have in place. And yes, there is pressure. Yes, there are decisions that we wanted to make, and we were kind of slapped on the wrist and said, no, behind closed doors, in public, then you can't do it. Point in example would be the combining of the technology and the IT systems with the City of New London. The Board of Ed wanted to do that 2 years ago. We were told to wait, and from what I understand, that's going to be happening within a year, this combination of systems. But yes, there is pressure. There are decisions where we're told, no, you can't have that on the agenda. There are times where people are appointed to positions, and we have to, policy says board votes on administrative positions, but there are positions where there are some, with alliance funding and with certain loopholes. You know, if you read the special master legislation, he does carry a lot of power with him. And we have no choice but to follow it. And that's where we are. I just told the Day paper that I'm hoping that within 7 to 8 months, this new board that is elected can be strong, can work, and have the same vision. This board that I'm on now, I don't know what you see. What the public sees is that I enjoy going to board meetings. 2 years ago, board meetings were battles, were fights, and now they're not.
No, I know that I had to actually go to battle for you to get, where you were able to get some stuff on the agenda.
Right. And currently now the executive committee meets, and we're able to put together an agenda. And yes, there are times where Dr. Adamowski will say, nope, that comes off, and we have to abide by it. And that's just how it is. And that's with the state involved and with state special master legislation, we have to follow it. So it does get frustrating. But it's not frustrating to a point. It's frustrating to a point. It's not frustrating to a point where I want to run again. You know, I want to be around again. I want to be around in hiring the new superintendent. There are different people, different things going around. I don't know if you talked about the process of how there is some talk of us getting 3 people from the state. The state's going to give us 3 names, and the board's going to vote. Last I heard, I think I even got an email today that Dr. Adamowski is in dialogue with CABE to set up some type of...
And what does that stand for?
CABE is the Connecticut Association of Board of Educations, and there is some dialogue going on now where he is in looking at getting a succession plan, or is it a secession plan, for our current superintendent in place, so we can start that process with the new board and look at it.
So the issue regarding our current superintendent, his contract then will not be getting revisited in terms of extending it. I mean, the vote that was taken to not renew, that's going to stand.
That's the plan, but after November 5th, we have a new board. I don't know what the makeup will be. The new board, someone could come on and say, we would like to extend, and it could there's nothing that says that can't happen.
Okay, that's a good question.
But I don't, but
I'd like to get more engaged in this conversation.
I'm a part of that board. My vote from the past would stand.
So I think it's great where you walked into the conversation because you do know, what you have been told instead of by word of mouth. For me to say the board has been pressured or this or that, like you said, the group has been slapped on the wrist, so to say. But you mentioned certain agenda items that have not been allowed to be on the agenda, and I'm wondering what you seem to value Stephen Adamowski's input at the simultaneously. So I'm wondering what types of agenda items that were not allowed that you found that made sense to have removed, and which ones did you feel like were not, that you found it that you would really have liked it, or the board have thought that was something important to have worked on?
I think we should vote. There were a couple of administrative appointments that I think that the board should have had a vote on, and we didn't. I can't get into specific positions or names. I think that every administrative position should come. There are big districts that even vote on teacher appointments. There were some that we were not. We didn't have a vote on. There was one recently on, I think Ms. Curtin put it on, about the uniforms. That made it on there, but there had to be some changing in the language. The executive committee is told that we are able to put things on the agenda. I want to try to think of some other things that maybe were put on and were taken off. I can go way back 2 years ago when we wanted to combine the offices. When that got taken off the plate, that was his first initiative. When he came to that first meeting, he said, I'm nixing that now. That made my blood boil. We had just taken a vote to combine these offices.
The IT was at the finance offices.
Both of them, and that's been in a study for 10 previous years. You might have been around when that study has been taking. You were on the council. You knew that process has been taking place, and Dr. Adamowski came in and said, no, that's stopping. But he did it, and in all respect to him, he did say give it some time, and he is now bringing it back up, and it is going to happen within hopefully our term on the Board of Ed. So
that's a pretty heavy hand, though, that he can come down with that hammer and take a vote and negate it. And that's in that special master legislation. And you know what he says to us, and he'd say it here if he was sitting here. He says, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to let you know the way that things should be. This is what we're looking at. This is how I'd like to see it done. This is how this is how the boards around the state have done it. This is how it looks. This is appropriate. And this is how the New London board should take a look at it. And then he would say something to the effect, you know that this is the decisions, and this is in your plate, it's going to be on your plate, but you do realize that if you don't make that right decision, that I do have the power to implement. And he'll say it in a respectful way. I can change it, I'll override you, and I'll do it. And we have had situations where, in hindsight, I want to be specific as I can. When he says that, I always listen to him. And I felt that I believe he's been in education for a long time. I know you like him, you don't like him, you read articles about him, but I believe, and most of the people I run into on the soccer field and in the fields, some of them will say, not most of them, some of them are going to say to you that he's an honest guy and he's going to lead you in the right direction.
But Jason, what is the point of
an elected board?
If you don't make the right decision, I'm going to make it. What is the purpose?
For example, and
I ask you that in such a way because I feel like you're supportive at the same time of his guidance, but I don't see that as guidance if you don't have a decision. If you don't make the right decision, it's going to be overrun.
Okay, so I want to try to give you some examples of them. So, like, when he says those, that he's going to override something, we had a personnel issue. Where the board was going one way, going back and forth, and I got to be very careful because the personnel, and he told us point blank, if you do this, and this is going to happen. And it would have happened, and it could have been bad. It could have made us look bad as a board. So we made our decision, and it smooth, and everything went well, and it happened. But the superintendent hiring, he let us know that it's the board's responsibility. It is our job to hire a superintendent. that's why when I'm hearing in the community that the state's going to give us 3 names, you know, I wish I had my phone with me. I could pull up the email where it says we're in contact with CABE, and the board
I've
is
heard it
going to
too.
have a workshop, and we're going to get this hashed out. I
So
can
locally,
tell you that
we're not going to have input in terms of the selection of those 3? It's going to come from the outside?
that's what the word on the street was. I didn't hear that from anybody other than the street.
I'm asking you, you're on the board.
No, I would say no, I've never heard that, other than the street, the people, yourself, other people who have said it to me, but never from Dr. Adamowski, never from the chair of the board. Now, that could easily, I can get an email tomorrow that says, okay, we're going to use 3 names, here they are. And you know what the worst part about it is? That we'd have to swallow it. As a Board of Ed, we'd have to swallow it, special master legislation. But he has told us on many occasions in workshops and retreats is that it is the board's responsibility to hire a superintendent. At no point has he ever said to the board, you know, you better think of keeping this guy, or you better think of this, you better think of that. At no point has that happened. It's going to be when you're elected, and hopefully when I'm elected, it's going to be in our hands. It's going to be our job. I'd like to see a CABE or another organization lead our search. I want to see 5, 6, 7 people come forward. I want to visit them. I want to interview them, and I want to have my hands in on that. And if I'm told otherwise, then I'm going to be concerned. And I would challenge that type of I would challenge Dr. Adamowski on that if we're given 3 names.
Now, one thing I'd ask both of you, because one of the things that the special master has brought has been mandatory training for board members. So as a board member, you had to do it. But as a concerned citizen, you did do it.
I attended not all of them. I've attended a couple.
Yeah, but you participated in the process. And I'd like to kind of get your take on terms of the value of this training, in terms of what I think the expectations were for the state and the administration, I think, as well as perhaps your own expectations. Were they met? Do you think that this had value? Because, again, we have an election, we're going to get new board members, and some of them may not have this training. And when are they going to get it? Or are they going to get it? And how are they going to get it? So I'll throw that out, and I'll let you 2 guys bat this one around a little bit.
Yeah, well, the few that I attended, I think it's probably just 2 that I attended, I didn't, well, first of all, we're not permitted, as a public, we're not permitted to participate, just, you know, observe. Yeah, so I think that's not the same experience, but...
And I went to one, and after observing once, that was enough.
So, but I didn't find it to be of huge value. Perhaps that's why I didn't get, no, I mean time, you know, I didn't get to participate in others, or I didn't get to attend to others. I mean, I know that another New London Parent Advocate member did attend more of them, and he did enjoy them, but I think enjoying is very different than finding value in. I don't have a great deal to say. I'm curious. I am curious, though, if I would have, you know, had the space in my schedule, I am curious to know more about the facilitator. I had a brief exchange with him, and I would like to hear more.
This the gentleman came in from Texas, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to what else was there. But you attended them.
I attended them all, and I've been on the board for 4 years, these past 4 years, and then 6 years before that. And these, we started training with CABE, and that training stopped, and then we started with this new group, CRSS training. I'm going to be honest with you that a lot of the policies and the stuff that the individual and the trainer talked about, you know, we have in place. We have a huge policy manual that was kind of put on the back burner when the state came in. So a number of the policies that were talked about were in place. Now, if they were being followed is another thing. I don't know if they were being followed. So this individual is kind of guiding us into how to follow policy. A big one that we just said is if we get a complaint, what's the bubble? What is the flow chart of where we go? Who do we make our complaints to? If I get a complaint from a parent on the street, and where do I take it? So that was his policy that we received. Do I feel I'm a better board member from attending the training? Yes. Only because I think that as a teacher, as a board member, as whatever profession that you're in, if you go to trainings, I think you're always going to pick up one or two things. And even if you can pick up one or two things, even though it takes your whole Saturday, 9 to 3, sometimes Friday evenings, it was helpful. The training will continue. The training for the new board members will continue, because this old board will have a November 9th training, I believe it is, and that will be our last training. If we're re-elected, we have the option, and I think we may be required to go to the training that will be supplied to the new board members. So it is going to continue, the training.
Will the same group, or this gentleman from Texas, has he been doing all the training?
He's been doing all the training.
And he would continue to do
As
this?
far as I know, he will continue to do that training unless there's some type of change.
And who's paying for this?
The state is paying for it. And we're talking $65,000, $70,000 for the training sessions that the board members have taken. It includes we get fed, and we get
65,000 is for the entire, or is this per
it's for the
session?
entire training.
The entire.
The entire training. And it includes everything that we attended. It paid for a retreat that we had at the Ocean Beach, and it came from the state. So-
Okay. Well. One thing I'd like to ask both of you guys, because I think this is important, because the district has kind of made a commitment to go to magnet schools. So kind of like whether we like it or not, they're coming. And I'd like to kind of get your feel, each of you, for whether, what do you think of this? Is this good, bad, or indifferent? Is it worth the, Jason alluded to, the rather significant cash windfall that the city, or the schools actually will receive, to the tune of, I believe it was about $9 million per year. And that's based upon a $3,000 per student, and we've got roughly 3,000 students in the district. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For round numbers?
That's, yeah.
You feel comfortable with that number?
That sounds about right.
So there's a lot of cash, and how's it going to be used? And when does this kick in? Is it when everything's in place? Because we're not really near that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it kicks in by the school when so Winthrop is already benefiting from their out-of-district students, and so they've been able to pay for a position, right, through their funding reimbursement already. So so by school.
So we've got Nathan Hale and Winthrop. Is Jennings, is that a magnet school at the moment, or
Right
no?
now, it's just a magnet within the city, but it will eventually be an interdistrict magnet school as well. So my feeling about it, you're asking what do we think about the magnet school district,
Yeah.
the transition into. Like Jason, I understand the financial incentive, and I do think that it's necessary. I personally would like to see smaller class sizes. That's one quick, easy place for where it should go. I think our educational system will benefit through direct contact of teacher-student, of the more that we can facilitate that. My concern is that I hear about how would this transferring over to a magnet school district, what to do, what schools are going to happen, how's it going to, what steps are going to take place. But I'm concerned that part of this state intervention is not simply because of board conduct, which is something that came out in the audit, but it's also because of not meeting our students' needs in New London. And I don't hear that that's what we're addressing. How are we changing the teaching? How are we changing the learning? How is it going to be different in our district? And I want to know that, or I want to ensure that we're not looking to raise scores simply by bringing in students from other districts. So that's my concern.
And that's a very, very legitimate concern. And I know that I had a conversation, I was invited to a tour of Winthrop School, and they brought some of the adults to the middle school and some to the high school, and also some to the STEM school as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically through the Kiwanis Club. And at a little coffee and discussion presentation by the superintendent prior to getting out into the field, you might say, I asked the question, how's this money going to be used? Is there a plan? And at least at that particular point in time, I didn't get the impression that there really was a plan in place. And that disturbed me because, and where's student achievement fall into that, into this? Because from my perspective, that ought to be kind of at the top. And Dr. Fisher was kind of alluding to, well, we'll promote how well we're doing to our neighbors, and they'll be anxious to come into New London because we tell them how wonderful we are. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought if our students are doing well, that would be a good advertisement, and people then would want to come because they'd want to be part of a real powerful and strong academic experience.
And if I could just add, I think that what the magnets will also do, and I had a conversation with some people who send their children to other schools, private, parochial, and they were asking me, what are our high schools going to look like? What are our middle schools going to look like under this magnet? Because we're considering of sending our children to, we live in New London and we want to send our, St. Bernard's is $12,000, and we want an alternative. We want to have that alternative to send our child to our new magnet high school that's going to be top-notch and that we have in place now. So people are looking at how we're marketing. Lou Allen is in charge of marketing, and he was very successful with our STEM high school. And the plan would be to have him market our elementary schools as well, with the hopes to bring in more students from within New London as well as those in our neighboring districts. And from my understanding is that the magnets, along with the Common Core curriculum, are going to kind of bring about a different instruction style. If you're going to a leadership academy, if we have that pathway, leadership and opportunities to, if you want to be a teacher, there'll be opportunities to take electives in those fields, so that when you do get out of this pathway, K to 12 or K to 8, you are on track to, I can't even imagine it. When I went to school, if I could have gone to a teacher leadership academy, what a great opportunity that would have been for someone who was aspiring to be a teacher. There are people who know at a young enough age what they want to do, and then there are those who need to be given opportunities. And you can also, if you get into one of the magnets and you don't like it, from what I understand, you can make a change. You could request to go to another.
But to me, that doesn't. You're saying that you believe that because it's that just being that having these different names in our pathways is going to change the way that we're teaching. And like I said, I was telling you, at least, that it was part of the conception stage of the Dual Language Arts Academy, and you can, so it's a themed school as well, it's dual language and art, and you can have someone that teaches your core curriculum through the arts and does it in a dynamic way, and you can have someone who teaches your core curriculum through the arts and still does it in the same old way that you're just textbook making that kind of a connection. And so it doesn't really label how are we doing it differently, and that's my concern, is that we should systematically be looking at how to do that, because that's the concern. If we bring in other students and they raise our test scores, and we haven't paid attention to our students, then what a disservice, what a cover-up for them, instead of actually focusing on, this is what we need to improve.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We've got a call. Good evening, and you're on the air.
Hey, Hey, Marty, this is your favorite Republican calling you. Listen, I'm listening, all right? You know me, I'm old school. And my concern is that I believe the focus is more on the monetary gains than on the actual student education. And unfortunately, this is a vicious circle in New London, not with only the school board, but everything we do is the flavor of the month. Right now, we're talking core curriculum, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. But when I went through school, it was reading, writing, arithmetic. So what is the end game with this new magnet school concept? Because right now, everybody says magnet school, magnet school. What just happened to education? What differentiates the magnet school concept and the core curriculum concept from regular education, other than it's the flavor of the month?
I'm dying to know who the favorite Republican is.
Well, of course, everybody knows who I am.
I don't by voice. I'm sorry. Can you help me?
Well, I can help you after the program.
Okay.
So I'll just tell you that we had an extensive conversation at the RTC fundraiser.
Okay.
All right, there you go. All right, and I'd like to hear a comprehensive answer of why core curriculum and magnet school concept is going to advance, like you said, the education or comprehension of our students. And I'll hang up and I'll listen.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the call.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying too, is that you can label it anything, but it's about what you're doing educationally. It's about what you believe philosophically as far as an education. I mean, I mean, one of the things that I tend to look at when I look at a school is I think what is your educational philosophy here, and how is your entire school running under this model so that you can support one another? How are teachers, one teacher supporting another teacher, from the teacher previous year, from the teacher next year, from the support staff teachers, from the administrators supporting the teachers? And when you have, and not to say that there is one correct philosophy or model, I actually don't believe that. I have my own style, and one that I would adopt if I had my school. But I don't believe that there is one. Different modes fit for different people. But I do think it's important that as a system, and so as at least individual schools, that you work as one mode, and that you all know what you're supporting and what you're working towards, so that you can support one another. So I agree with you, and you can do that under the flavor of arts integration. You can do that under the flavor of teacher leadership, or whatever it needs to be, but it's still about how you choose to deliver, or how you choose to allow our students to explore.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that regarding the magnet schools, though, I think that to ignore the Sheff versus O'Neill, I think that is the driving force behind this whole concept, is to deal with that case in dealing with the integration of our schools.
I just wanted to say about Nathan Hale is going to be an arts, dance, and they hired an artistic dean who is in charge of writing curriculum and who is in charge of being the dean of instruction for artistic studies. So there is that piece being placed into each school. So each school is going to specialize and have specialized staff to implement into each subject, so that it is following its theme. Now, as far as the Common Core curriculum, I think that there are some states who are backing out of it. Connecticut's in it for the long haul, unless there are some serious changes. And if I could just give a synopsis of from what I know about Common Core, is that it's just a change in some of the standards that are learned at each grade level. For example, 5th grade used to do probability. That is now a 6th grade standard, which opens up more time frame for fractions. If a student gets the fractions, let's say dividing fractions early on in the process, then they would move along to a more challenging piece of dividing fractions. Those people who don't understand fractions right away are going to stay with fractions. Everybody's going to stay with fractions until everybody has a good hold on to it, so you can move on to the next topic in math. It opens up that door for rigor for those students who can have the rigor. It opens up the door for those people who don't. Usually you give a test, you get a 70, everybody moves on. Now that person who gets a 70 is going to have a little more time to maybe make it an 80 to learn the concepts more. If I move from Connecticut to Arizona and they have Common Core, and I'm a 5th grade teacher, I have a 5th grade son, he's going to be doing dividing fractions in May. When he moves to Arizona, he'll be doing dividing fractions. The idea is that we are not up to snuff, up to date with our curriculum. Other countries are passing us, and we are kind of being left behind in our subjects. So that's the Common Core curriculum, from what I understand as an educator. Is it the right thing? It surely is the flavor of the day. We've had so many different challenges and changes with No Child Left Behind, with the new CMT testing. There's going to be a whole new test involved with Common Core. So yeah, there are a lot of changes that are going to happen. Is it the right thing? Is it going to improve education? The research that I look at says yes. Some people have different opinions.
So you're pretty comfortable with this? I mean, that's the impression I'm getting.
Well, here's the deal. As a teacher, I have no choice but to be comfortable. I have to go to professional development. I have to know it. I have to dream it. I have to breathe it. Our teachers are going to be expected to know Common Core curriculum.
Do teachers in today's environment have the latitude to have some of their own persona, gravitas in the classroom, or are we trying to pump out clones and everybody's the same and they're teaching the same way in the same material in the same fashion so we can get the same results with all the students? Help me out, because you're the board members now. I'm on the outside.
It depends on where. It depends on the school. Like even within New London, we don't have. It depends on your administrator. So. And I do feel a bit differently about, as an educator myself as well, I do, yes, I understand the curriculum is my responsibility to get across to students, but that's not where the buck stops for me. The buck for me stops at engaging students in the love of learning, and wanting for them to want to find out more as much as they can, for them to have that fire of I just want to know, I have to know. And so the key concepts, like yes, there are key concepts that we want to, we want to know that we want kids to be able to read. We want them to have a grasp of mathematics. We do want them to have that, and across the board, but it's way beyond that.
But within that Common Core, a good teacher can make that. I was doing a lesson on dividing fractions. I watched the video that did some rap, talked about dividing fractions. The kids sang along. Kids loved the lesson. Kids learned the lesson. So there can be that excitement if you have the right teacher, the person who does the lesson plans, the person. So there is that. I personally think there's more room within the Common Core, because now I don't have to rush from fractions. I could stay there. I could hold on fractions for. I have a pacing guide that says that you have 3 weeks and that you should be moving along. And I can do all those things. I could have some kids working on the computer because they can go further and go on a math website. And I have some kids in a small group working with me with manipulatives. And then I have those in the corner watching math rap videos. So there are so many ways that you can do all of what you're saying.
Sure, you can, you cannot. It doesn't end up dictating whether it's going to happen.
And I do definitely agree with you that it depends on the principal. There are some principals who walk in with the teacher's manual and say, oh, you're not on that part. Okay, see me after. That happens.
Yeah.
You're not on lesson 1, page 2. I need to see you in my office. Those kind of things we have to work on and put a stop to that kind of stuff.
But that doesn't end up answering the question on whether New London New London Public Schools are, if the magnet, if they are moving on to a magnet school district is going to be successful for the education of our New London public school children.
Yeah. We're getting near the end of the program, and there's one other topic I'd like to explore. And before we move into that, I'd just like to let everybody know that tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. there will be a forum for New London City Council candidates at the Senior Center, and that's sponsored by the LOT Group, Looking Out for Taxpayers. So if you're interested in meeting and hearing from some of your city council candidates, yours truly included, please stop down to the Senior Center at 6:30 tomorrow. We're embarking on
And because it's a Board of Education, so when is the Board of Education?
I don't know. Maybe you can tell me that.
On the 15th. On the 15th, there is a Meet the Candidates by the Teachers Union at the Science and Tech Magnet High School. And then there is, let's see, on the 22nd from 6 to 9, there's a Board of Ed debate at the Science and Tech Magnet High School. That one is by the League of Women Voters. It's also by New London Parent Advocates, and I'm sorry, I forgot the third group. I think it's Neighborhood Alliance, might be?
Might be.
Might be. And then on the 23rd, from 6 to 9, LOT has its Board of Education forum at the Senior Center.
There you go. I'm glad I brought you along. She's informed. But the last topic, we've only got a minute or two here, so we're going to have to really be on topic here. It deals with the extended day. We're New London Public Schools, we're embarking on a new path here. Can we kind of discuss what it is, how's it working, what's the goal?
Okay, I'll just say quickly as far as extended day, I have a quick opinion on that. I understand its benefits of getting more experience in there for students who don't necessarily have that in the wider spectrum of their lives. I wish that it was being done more. I'm concerned that it's another one of those programs that's being put in, but it's not connected to a greater plan. I don't want it to end up failing because of that. I'm also concerned that families from other districts, if we're looking to attract, that a lot of families from other districts do not want to have their kids in extended day, that they would want to have the opportunity to spend time at home with their kids, take them to other extracurricular activities that are not necessarily offered at school. So that's a quick one for now.
And if I could just say that there's been lots of partnerships with local community, with businesses and community people to help the extended day programs. It is supposed to be in some ways linked to the daily lessons and daily activities, and I just think it's only going to expand with I know that it's there are some people who want that time at home, and I know I ran into a parent from a kindergarten child, and he leaves at like 8 and comes home at 5, and they just feel that's too late. But there has been a lot of work put into it by the staff.
This is a mandatory program, isn't it?
I believe it's mandatory, but I mean, if I say I need my daughter, we have somewhere to go. They can't keep your child.
Okay, folks, we're in Fagmont. I want to thank Jason Catala and Mona Martinez for coming on tonight.
Thank
they
you,
both
Marty.
deserve your vote, so get out and vote on November 5th, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.